All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I wanted to really react to a clip that was just shared by my buddy Paul Esdin. And I listened to like the first 5 seconds and I'm like, wait, you know what? Let me just flip on the camera and kind of react to it. The title of the tweet, Steve Young described the relationship between Jets offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur and quarterback Zach Wilson as broken. If the team decides to move on from LaFleur, he likes the idea of replacing him with recently fired Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury. Okay, so let's check this thing out.
LaFleur is gone. If you're going to bring back Zach Wilson, you can't have the same coaching around him. If they do decide to let Mike go, Steve, who do you think should be the next offensive coordinator and could maybe fix Wilson?
Okay.
Is Kingsbury a guy?
Yeah, okay, hold on. Wait, let's go backwards. Because remember, we have to mourn the passing of Greg Knapp, who got run over by a distracted driver, which was part of the solution that was part of how he was getting drafted, and how I'm sorry about that. Mike and Zach needs somebody who's not I know he doesn't need tough love. He doesn't need somebody like see how tough he He needs someone to he needs a big brother and a young, knowledgeable, innovative, someone who can trust and says to him, you know what, despite everything that's happened, Zach, I believe in you. You can get this done. Zach needs that. And Mike kind of kept him at arm's length and gave him the tough love aspect, and I just don't think it's really useful for Zach. If he stays, they've got to fix that. They've got to fix that. That's not working, and it's a broken relationship. It's a relationship that needs mending, and that's on both of them. If they do let him go, I would say that Kliff Kingsbury, yeah, I like that idea. I like that. I need somebody who's going to because Zach's problems are not physical. Zach's problems are expectations and how he deals with expectations, and that comes from every direction and all the things that come with playing and playing great football. And he's got to figure out a way to process all the expectations so it doesn't affect his play. And that's a process that's going to go on. I don't think it's not hard. Not hard. It's not long suffering. It just needs to find. It's growing up. It's maturing. It's figuring out how to deal with the stuff in front of you.
Okay, so super interesting stuff here. Kind of a couple things to unpack. I guess the first thing I want to really bring up, the whole Mike LaFleur thing, and really, as Jets fans, we all know that Zach Wilson and Steve Young are super close, going back to BYU. So Steve Young obviously wants the best for Wilson moving forward, and with that understanding, knowing that these two keep in touch and they keep in contact, it kind of begs the question, did Zach Wilson tell Steve Young that this is how Mike LaFleur acts? Or, is Zach Wilson sharing things like in the meeting rooms and, just different experiences that he's having with LaFleur? And then Steve Young is he's coming to these realizations by himself, like the whole tough love thing, keeping Wilson at arm's length. It's such an interesting situation, and will never truly be a fly in the wall. I would love to be in that situation, but unfortunately, to really crack down and get those personal details is pretty much impossible unless you're extremely close to the situation. So that's the first kind of reaction. How does Young know these things about Mike LaFleur, Zach Wilson's relationship? It's interesting to say the least. Now, moving on to the Kliff Kingsbury side of things, I think there's really two sides of the coin here. On one side, there is a ton of pros, a ton of positive aspects that Kliff Kingsbury, in my opinion, would bring to this Jets offensive staff, right? When we talk about experience working with young quarterbacks, offensive innovation, feeding young playmakers, getting the explosive playmakers, which, by the way, the Jets have a lot of. I think Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, running backs out of the flat, getting these guys the football in space. I think Kingsbury's offensive system is, it's a lot of fun to watch, whether you're talking NFL or college. just the ability to spray the football all around the field, to target and get the most talented and explosive players the ball consistently, and always keeping defenses and defensive coordinators on their heels, right? I think from that regard, when we match personnel to Kliff Kingsbury, I think it makes a ton of sense. But here's where I have a couple of question marks surrounding Kingsbury. Number one, he just signed a contract extension this past offseason with the Cardinals through 2027. So he's already being paid, right? He doesn't need to jump back into the grind. He doesn't need to accept, a lower job on the coaching totem pole, if you will. He's already getting a check. Now, even though the exact numbers have not been reported yet, when the extension initially broke, I believe it was Adam Schefter who reported $5.5 million a season over 6 years. So, you got to imagine that Kingsbury's going to be fine if he doesn't want to return to coaching. And speaking of that, it definitely seems more common today than maybe like a couple years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where coaches that are younger are just stepping away, right? We just saw that last offseason with Sean Payton. We're looking at what could potentially go down with Kingsbury's rival and Sean McVay. There's a chance that he could step away. He's one of the best head coaches in football. He could just opt to leave the LA Rams and focus on other things, or take a year or two off and potentially come back to the Rams or go to a new team. I know it's not the exact same situation, but we can look at Dan Mullen. An excellent play designer, somebody who really, really knows offensive football, gets fired from Florida, and he has a ton of interest right out of the gate from NFL jobs, college jobs, but he opts to just go into TV. These guys are obviously leaving the door open for returns, and it's not to say Kingsbury won't just immediately hop back into the cycle and become an offensive coordinator somewhere else. I know there was a report earlier this morning that the New England Patriots were doing their homework on Kingsbury, potentially wanting to bring him in to replace Matt Patricia and the Joe Judge combination. But, we'll see how it plays out. I will say this, though, in Salah's end-of-the-year press conference, he did seem to sway, and this is just the vibe that I got from Saleh and Joe Douglas. It seems like they are moving forward with LaFleur. Nothing is confirmed, of course. News can break literally right now that the Jets are firing LaFleur. But from the sound of it, Saleh didn't really have a set time or date on when a decision needs to be made. He's going to be sitting back and kind of analyzing all decisions and taking his time to go throughout the process to come up with potential changes. So I think if there was a real sense of urgency, think about it. All these head coaching gigs are opening up. Teams have got to quickly move to fill out their staffs and, get guys in the building that they like. And I feel like, let's be honest, Kingsbury is definitely high up on when you're thinking about available offensive minds that have worked and had success with young quarterbacks. And, I'm not specifically just only talking about Kyler Murray. I'm talking about Baker Mayfield, to Patrick Mahomes, Davis Webb, and Johnny Manziel, even at A&M. Kingsbury understands the young, talented quarterback. He's been around those guys. He's had, again, success with them. Kingsbury's high up on probably a lot of people's lists when you're just looking at available offensive minds. If there was that immediate pressure to bring him in, chances are the news with LaFleur would be out by now, and the Jets would be making a full court press to bring Kliff into the building. And right now, I'm just not getting that sense. Maybe something is being done behind the scenes. Maybe Kliff will be wearing green next season. It'll definitely be interesting. But we'll see. We'll see. I know there's some talk. Rich Cimini brought it up a couple days ago. A couple days ago. Possibility of Gary Kubiak coming into the Jets locker room, having that experience with Saleh, knowing this offensive system, in Cimini's own words, one of the founders of it, and that would be super, super interesting considering, his success in the long term as well as Super Bowl championships under his belt. I think that would just be an absolute slam dunk. And then, of course, there's other candidates out there as well, like Frank Reich is another big name. But we'll see how it plays out. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. about this whole Mike LaFleur thing, possibility. What are the chances of Kliff Kingsbury being brought into this Jets team? Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, go Jets.